Hi, good day. This is Yem here, and I'm back with a quick update in regards to Mudon Al Ranim. Now, transactions are happening. I would say we could have a little bit of a reflection of what's been happening after the conflict that was going on. Now, we've seen a transaction going for a ready 3-bedroom right here at a 3.2, which says that this is a deal that most probably happened after the conflict. Prior to it is a 3.6 for a 3-bedroom ground plus one, which also says that this transaction might have happened before the conflict for a mortgage buyer, which that reflects within, let's say, 2 months or a month and a half. Now, the highest still recorded 3.75, and that transaction basically reflected on the 5th of April. The highest still stays for a ground plus two is a 4.25, and these layouts are quite scarce in the community. Now, if we're looking at the times prior to that, we're seeing more commonly 3.75 as well as a 3.6 being the average, depending on, of course, facing a park. Now, moving forward to the 4-bedroom, the most recent transaction is a 4.3 for a ground plus one and the 4.9 for a ground plus two. Now, the ground plus one, we've seen an average of 4.6 prior at 4.7. Now, after the conflict, we see people agreeing at 4.3, and for the ground plus two, we're seeing the previous transactions was 5.5. Or this has shown reflected after the conflict, but we know the MOU must have been signed anytime before that. This transaction was on the 21st of April, and this is reflected 30th of April, which means demand is there, but they need a little bit of compromise in terms of price. Now, moving on to rentals for a 3-bedroom ground plus one in Mudon Al Ranim, the average is between 190 to 175, depending on whether it's park facing or whether it's facing the outer side of the community. If we're looking at a ground plus two, then we're looking at transactions at an average of 200, a little bit higher, up till 220. Most recently, the 3-bedroom ground plus one transactions are showing the most, which shows that there is demand, as most of these transactions are happening in May. Now, going on to the 4-bedrooms in Mudon Al Ranim, ground plus one is showing transactions at between 220 to 235. Even though previously we've seen transactions at 205 and 210. These, of course, vary according to the location within the community. For the ground plus two, we're seeing the average of 250 to 260. Before the conflict, and we've seen the higher transactions happening. Now, this seems to be an average. It also tells us that transactions are quite healthy, as in terms of numbers and prevalence of them. Rents are happening, people are coming back, streets are getting crowded. Now, if you're considering to rent out your property or to sell it, or even know what's going on in the market and how to position yourself, I'll leave my number below and you can contact me.